Morning, everybody. It's great to see you guys today, and welcome to those watching online, Facebook, etc. Good to have you with us as well. We're in the series called Limitless that Pastor Bo launched last week. If you were here, you know she killed it. It was an amazing message. I actually said, Bo, you should preach this weekend. And she was like, I got a wedding to plan or something. If you haven't heard, Bo's getting married next week, and we're pretty excited about that around here to her lovely bride. I was going to say bride, but that's not right. It's flip-flop there, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, Cliff, he's an awesome guy. Well, we're in this series, Limitless, and we're talking about how we are limited as human beings. Almost in every aspect of our lives, we have limitations. We're faced with limitations, except in one area, and that's in our desires. We have unlimited need. And John Ortberg, in his book called Soul Keeping, that we're basing a little bit of this series on, he writes this: we always want more. More time, more wisdom, more beauty, more funny YouTube videos. This is the soul crying out. We never have enough. The truth is, the soul's infinite capacity to desire is the mirror image of God's infinite capacity to give. What if the real reason we feel like we never have enough is that God is not yet finished giving? The unlimited neediness of the soul matches the unlimited grace of God. See, I've been in churches where we talk about the desires that God has given us, and oftentimes we try to minimize those desires. We say that sometimes even put them in the evil category, but through this series we're talking about how God has given us unlimited desire, and there's a reason for that, and yet we are the keepers of our souls. And some of these desires that we're going to be talking about can feed our souls, or they can detract from our souls. They can weary us. They can cause us to lose sight of what's most important. And so we're talking about that. How do we feed our souls? As Bo talked about last week, we are the keeper of the stream, the metaphor of our streams being our soul, and we get to choose what is in and what is out. So today I want to talk about how our soul longs for a future. We all desire a future. We think about tomorrow. We've thought about tomorrow since we were children. We constantly are thinking about tomorrow, what our future looks like. We are built for it. And so I want to kind of interact with you for a minute. What future do you long for? What do you long for in your future? What kind of future do you long for? Go ahead, popcorn it a little bit. Joy, a joyful future. Absolutely. Peace and happiness, for sure. A limitless future, absolutely. What else? Love. Health, financial security. Adventure. Opportunity. Compassion. Fun, absolutely. We all want a fun future. Nobody wants a non-fun future. There's all these desires that we have for our future, right? But here's the tension, is that we're anxious about all those things. We're anxious about not experiencing those things. We're anxious about not having security, not having peace, not having joy, not having love. And so most of our future is actually filled with anxiety and stress about the kind of future that we want to have. And there's a better way, and that's what we want to talk about today, that what we long for, this idea of longing for a future, all these things that we just mentioned can find themselves in what Jesus talked to us about in Luke chapter 12. There's a tension built into this, is that our future that we long for, we all know that our future is temporary and uncertain. And so what happens is, because of this longing that we have, we take this desire for a future, and because of our limitations, we know that the future is uncertain. What we do is not healthy for our soul often. What we'll do is we'll either one of two things. We'll fill up our future, just pack it full with all kinds of stuff. We cram as much as possible as we can into our lives and our schedules. We work harder, we play harder, because we know our time is short. We've got to make sure that our future is secure. We got to make sure that we're set up for the future. We want to make sure that we play at the same time. And so we stress and we're anxious and our souls are not doing good as a result of this desire. But this desire is from God. Another thing that we do is that we try to elongate our life. We try to live just a little bit longer so we can stick a little bit more in there. And I don't know why we're so attached to this world. I got to be honest with you. It's not doing us any favors, but we try to just keep it going just a little bit longer. And I don't think there's anything wrong with packing our lives full or trying to live a little bit longer. But the problem is when we're consumed by anxiety about those things. When we're consumed with stress and worry about our future, that's where the problem lies. And that's where Jesus wants to kind of intersect and talk to us about today, because there's no way to live. It's just no way to live worrying about our future. This desire that we have can be met in another way. So Luke chapter 12, are you guys there? You're like, I don't bring my Bible to this church because you guys always put it up on the screen. It's kind of one of those things, isn't it? I mean, it's just what we do, Evan. We kind of produce this idea that I don't need to bring my Bible. But you got your phone on you, so why don't you pull that out and follow along with me, Luke chapter 12. If you haven't downloaded the Bible app, do that right now. Don't take it, it's like stop listening to me for a minute, because what I'm about to say in the next 5 minutes isn't that important anyway, and just download that app, all right? Download that app. So important to have the Bible on our fingers at any moment. Luke chapter 12. I'm going to put up this first scripture on the screen. Jesus is talking to the crowd, as he often did. A crowd just similar to this, like people from different walks of life, and they're just listening to the teaching of Jesus. And someone in the crowd yells out to Jesus. Someone says, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." And when I heard this, I laughed, because it sounds like he's whining to me. I don't know. It just sounds like he's Mom, my brother is taking stuff from me and I need it. And why is he getting the inheritance? And this kind of thing. So Jesus entertains this question and this idea. "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." And what the brother is worried about is he's worried about his what? His future. Ultimately, the brother is worried about his future. He's probably less concerned about his bro's future and much more concerned about his own future, right? And that's humanity. So I was watching this podcast. I listened to This American Life, based out of OPB, and it's a really interesting podcast I listened to just a couple weeks ago about this very wealthy family, very, very wealthy family, and they had, I think, like 16 kids, and when the parents died, the kids had the job of dividing the inheritance among all the kids. And you can imagine, do you think it went well, or do you think they had a lot of arguments? Of course, they fought over the littlest things. Because why? Because they were worried about their future. They wanted to make sure everything was fair and that they got what they deserved. And we worry about this stuff. Our longing for a future quickly turns into worrying about our future. There was a Gallup study done back in last year, 2018, that showed that Americans now, our stress, our worry, our anger, not only intensified in 2018, but now we are one of the most stressed and worried countries in the world. We're tied for Greece. I don't know what that means, but we are. And I guess they're pretty stressed out too. But there are 55% of Americans who were surveyed. They were asked, have you experienced stress the day before you took the survey? And they said yes. 55% said yes, I just experienced stress yesterday. And we're in the top 5 of 143 countries studied. And you know who's the most stressed and worried in our nation? Young people. Ages 15 to 49. They're the most stressed out of all of us. 2 out of 3 adults under 50 say they experience stress a lot, and half say they felt worried a lot. See, we worry about our future. We worry about our economy. We worry about our health care. We worry about our politics. We worry about our families. We worry about our religion. We worry about our 501ks. We worry about our Social Security. We worry about hunger and homelessness. We worry about drug use and crime. We worry about the environment. We worry about guns. And that took me 30 seconds to come up with that list, and it's much, much longer than that. We are constantly worrying about our future. Like this guy, Jesus, I'm worried about my inheritance. I'm worried that I'm secure. I'm worried. And this is how Jesus responds. And by the way, you're not going to like this. You're not going to like the way Jesus responds to this guy. You're not going to like the way what he tells us is the way to curb worry for our future. But it's a challenge to the way we think in this world, in this country. Here's what Jesus says. And he said to them, take care and be on your guard. Watch out, because this is the temptation of all of us when we think about our longing for a future, against all covetousness. And that word covetousness simply means that I want a future, a secure future, even at the expense of someone else's future. So that's what that word covetousness means in this context. And be on your guard against that. For one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. Jesus is not saying that it's bad to possess, and we're going to keep coming back to that idea. He's not saying that it's bad to have stuff. What he's saying is it's bad to worry about having stuff, and it's bad to take from others in order for you to have. And he's saying that there's a better way to live than to be anxious about your future, like this guy was about his inheritance. See, Jesus is trying to redirect our longings for a future. He created it. He created us with this longing, so this is not a bad longing, but he's simply trying to readjust our souls so we can thrive. And then what he does in verse 16 is he tells us this story. Right after this, he tells them this story to kind of help unpack what he's saying. He says, the land of a rich man produced plentifully, and he thought to himself, what shall I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops. And he said, I will do this. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. Is that a bad idea or a good idea? It's a good idea. There's no trick question here. I'm not going to come back around and say, oh, no, you're wrong. Jesus rebukes you. There's nothing wrong with storing for the future. He's not making this point. What is he making the point? Well, let's keep reading. He continues to say, I will do this. I'll tear down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. Listen to this. And I will say to my soul, here it is, soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, and be merry. You're good. You've got enough stored away, soul, that you don't have to be anxious anymore. Do you see the inherent problem with that? Anybody here? 2007, 2008? See, the world promises a lot, but rarely delivers what it promises. And Jesus knows this, and that if our soul is attached to our futures in terms of its security, if our soul is restless until we have a secure future, what Jesus is saying is that your soul will always be restless. You have to put your soul's security in something else. And God said to him, fool, this night your soul is required of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be? So is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. Again, Jesus is not saying it's bad to lay up stuff for yourself. It's bad when we're anxious and our life is tilted towards, well, my soul won't be content until I have such and such for my future. And then Jesus turns to his disciples, verse 22. To those that are kind of following the way of Jesus, that want to know more, that want to dig deeper, want to have a deeper life of faith, all of that. And this is what he says to them. Therefore, I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat, nor about your body, what you will put on. For life is more than food, and the body more than clothing. Consider the birds, the ravens. They neither sow nor reap. They neither have storehouses or barns, yet God feeds them. How much more value are you than those birds? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his span of life? It's like, good point, Jesus. No, I can't add any. I can take away from my life by being anxious. I can't add anything. Consider the flowers, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass, which is alive in the field today, and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, how much more will he clothe you, O ye of little faith? And do not seek what you are to eat and what you are to drink, nor be worried about such things. For all the nations of the world seek after these things, and your Father knows that you need them. See, Jesus, what is Jesus trying? He's trying to disconnect this anxiety-ridden fear of the future that we all have, and he's trying to recalibrate us so that we rest in him, that he knows what we need. Our Father in heaven knows what we need, and that should secure our future. See, he's saying life is more than all of these other things. Anxiety doesn't do anything for you. It actually takes from you. It steals from you. And do you believe that I love you and that I care for you more than the birds and the flowers? Do you believe this? This is fundamental. He knows what we need. He'll take care of our needs. But do you believe this? So what do we do? Well, Jesus unpacks it, what we should do. And did I already say you're not going to like this? Here it is. So Jesus said, instead of this worry living of our future into our future, and like, I don't know, what's gonna happen? Am I gonna have security? Am I gonna have joy and peace? Is everything gonna work out? Instead of worrying about all of that, seek his kingdom. Seek first his kingdom, Jesus said, taught in another place, right? Seek first his kingdom, and these things will be added to you. What things? What he's talking about, food and clothing, the basics, the necessities of life. If you seek his kingdom, you get both ends. You both get all the blessings of living the kingdom life, and you get all the provision of the daily necessities that Jesus was talking about. And then he says, fear not. Why does he say fear not? Because some of you right now, if you're like me, you're freaking out about this. You're like, I'd much rather be in control of my future. I'd rather be the one that builds the barns and the storehouses and I do all that work, and I make sure that I'm set up and my family's set up. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just that if that's what you're seeking, if that's all you're seeking, if that's your total focus, Jesus is saying, fear not. I know this is going to be hard. Little flock, it's like this grandfather kind of coming to us and saying, don't be afraid, you guys. I know this is going to be hard. I know this isn't easy, but it's your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. He wants to shower blessings on us. Do you, me, believe this? And then he says something that I'm like, come on. I mean, it's a suggestion, right? It's not like a command. Sell your possessions and give to the needy. But that doesn't even fit in the context of what we're talking about, Jesus. I don't understand. What does that have to do with anything else? You just told us not to fear, and then all of a sudden you're telling us to sell everything. You know what that does in me? That produces fear. Jesus is saying, why, Jesus, are you adding this? Why don't you just skip from good pleasure to give you the kingdom, provide yourselves with money bags that do not grow old? Ooh, I really like that phrase. I wonder what that means. That's awesome. But what Jesus is saying is that there's really only one way to disconnect worry and stress and anxiety out of your life. There's only one way to disconnect it from worrying about the future. And you're not going to like it. It's to sell. It's to give away. Whatever causes you anxiety and worry in your life. Sell your possessions and give to the needy. And when you do that, Jesus is saying, you provide yourselves with money bags that do not grow old, with a treasure in the heavens that does not fail, where no thief approaches and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. I've heard this preached a lot, where it's just all about eternity. It's just all about, when you sell your possessions and you give to the needy, you provide yourselves with money bags that do not grow old. All he's talking about is heavenly treasures. So you guys don't get to experience any of the blessings of living this kind of radical, generous life in the here and now. And I've heard that, and I'm just like, that's not right. You know why that's not right? It's because of this money bags. We don't need money bags in heaven. We're going to have everything. There's something here that Jesus is saying, that if you live the way of Jesus, he's telling his disciples, if you seek first the kingdom, all these things will be added to you. If you sell your possessions and give to the needy, because that's a kingdom principle, that's the way of Jesus, then listen, you're going to have money bags here on earth that do not grow old, which means that we are a constant conduit of the blessings of God in the here and now. I think the primary way that Jesus wanted to bless the earth is through his people. Through his people who are willing to live this audacious, who does Jesus think he is to ask us to do this? It's this audacious way of living that is radically different and counterculture to the world that we live in. And the reason I think he's doing it is because he knows that the way his blessing will flow into our cities and into our region and into our nation and into our world is through the generosity of God's people who are willing to sell their possessions and give to the needy. Yet we go after security and basic necessities, and we are anxious about those things and we stress about those things. And as a result, we hold on to what we have I was a missionary in Croatia, and we went to a father-son retreat when my two oldest were pretty young. They were like 6 and 7, 7 and 8, somewhere around there. And I'm not going to tell you which one this story is on because I didn't get his permission to share the story. So he'll he will remain anonymous. But anyways, it's more of a reflection on me than on him. So they decided to play this game with these missionary kids. It was a stupid game to begin with. I knew it was stupid, but I wasn't in charge of the camp, but so they did it. So what they did is they put all the kids into a back room, and then all the adults were just standing out waiting for the kids to come in. They had 2 chairs seated in the middle of the room, and they invite the kids to come in. And what the game was, they were going to give the kid that came in 3 candies, and he had a choice to give the kid opposite him however many of those candies. It was totally up to him. None, 1, 2, all of them, whatever. What they didn't know is that whatever they gave, they would get back. But they didn't tell them that. And so they're really setting these kids up for failure, in my opinion. So they bring these kids in, and one after the other gives at least 1, 2. I don't think anybody gave all 3 candies. Come on. But still, I was actually kind of surprised that every kid that came in gave 1 or more. It wasn't the 1950s. You know what I'm saying? It's like, wow, these kids are really generous. So then my son comes in, and I knew what was going to happen. I knew it, and because I knew this, I know, yeah, and it's bad on me, I'm sure, but he decided to keep all 3. He was the only kid in that entire camp who kept all 3 of candies. I just wanted to crawl away. I was just like, man, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? All these people, all these other parents, their kids gave generously 1, 2. My kid, not one candy. And I thought, that's our world, though. That's our world's idea of, we're not sure if we're going to have for the future, so we hold and we keep and we make sure that we're taken care of. And if we have more, I guess 3 wasn't enough. Maybe 4, maybe he would have given 1 away. If it was 4, maybe 5, I don't know. No, he wouldn't have. He would have kept all of them. I know that. But that's what we do. We hold because we're afraid. Because we're afraid that if we give, this promise isn't true. That's what we're afraid of. We're afraid that if we give, God's not good. He won't back me up. That's what we're really afraid of. See, what is Jesus doing? He's advocating a life of trust and generosity in his goodness. And this idea of money bags not growing old, can be said in simpler terms: give and it will be given to you. Where we become conduits of blessing. Where as we pour out, he pours in. I've seen this over and over and over from people in this church and from other communities of faith that I've been a part of, where they give, and people that just live generous lives. You know what I've seen in their life is they always have more to give, always. 100% of the time, they always have something more they can give. Why? Because they're wealthy? Or is it because God is fulfilling his promises as they give? I've seen Westside Church is one of the most generous communities of faith that I've ever been a part of. And some would say and have said, well, you guys, it's on the west side of Bend, a lot of wealth there. And so you're assuming that wealthy people are just spontaneously generous? Huh. But there have been people in this body over the years and over the decades who have caught a hold of the heart of God for a community and have said, I'm going to sacrificially give of not just my money, but in every arena of my life, because I know something, I've experienced something, I've seen something proven over and over and over again, that as I give, God refills. As I pour out, he fills back up. I wonder what it would look like if a community like Westside lived this out. I think that's a large part of what For the City is about, our initiative that we're doing over the next 2 years, where we're just sacrificially, let's give of our time and our giftings and our treasure, right? And there's a picture that was given to me by one of our council members. Our council is a group of elders who I meet with every month that oversee the finances of our church. And this particular council member sent me a picture of a plant. And he's sharing me the story of this plant. I thought it was interesting in light of this message. It was this plant that's been in his family for like 60 years, and it's on his grandparents' farm. It's not this amazing plant or anything. It's just this plant that his grandparents grew. And what they do is that over time, they've given different family members shoots from this plant that they get to repot wherever they live. And so now, 6 decades later, this plant is growing in many different homes all around the United States. And so I have a picture of our council member's plant. It's not that impressive, I gotta be honest. it's just a plant, you know what I'm saying? But this idea is really compelling to me that we all long for a future. We all desire something that's fruitful 60 years from now, a life that is thriving 60 years from now. We all desire that our families would be blessed, right? But this idea that they planted off, that they sent off, that they redeposited something of this plant into other plants, and they continue to produce fruit over time is something really compelling to me, because our soul longs for a future. And that longing can only truly be met as we trust in the way of Jesus. And his way is one of generosity. It's one of giving away what we possess, what we own, what we have, so that others will also have a future without concern for our own future. Why? Because we're unconcerned about our future? No. Because our future is unimportant? No. Because Jesus has our future. And he will make sure we get to where he wants us to be, secure, happy, filled with joy, filled with peace. All the things that we said about what we want for our future, how those things are fulfilled? That longing for a future is by generosity. Every single one of those things happens. You don't feel more joyful when you have more money in your bank account. What did Bo say, 75,000? That's the point. Okay, let's all pray for 75 grand, right? Okay, maybe we'll all be happy. That's our happy quotient. But, right, you get peace, you get joy, you get laughter, you have fun when you give. Our souls long for a future. The question today is, do we trust Jesus and what he said to take care of us as we live into his way? Would you close your eyes with me for a moment? And I recognize the tension in the room with this idea, because it's so counterintuitive to our way in America and to the way that we've lived our lives and the way that we've structured our lives, and the way that we've actually, sometimes we worry God out of the equation even, or sometimes we work so hard that we work God out of the equation of our lives, and until that crisis happens, and then everything falls apart. And where are we at now, And so this what I think Jesus is advocating is this idea that you put your faith like a deeper, this is deep waters of faith, where you say to Jesus what feels like on the edge of a chasm, and you're not sure if he'll be there, when you step out in faith to say, even if I fall, Jesus, I know you'll catch me. Even if it doesn't go the way your word teaches, I know you'll be with me. There's something deeper about that faith I think God is calling us all to. So Jesus, would you give us the courage to do what you asked, to live a life of faith, to trust that as we live a generous life, that our future is secure and that our souls will be at rest in the process, that we can trust you with tomorrow. We can trust you with our tomorrow. And we declare that we do, that you would help us, Jesus. You can open your eyes. I just want to end with this. Pastor Bo wrote this on her Facebook page this morning. She was a paraphrase of Psalm 89. I'm going to finish with this. Why don't you stand? Why don't you stand with me, and we'll finish up this way. Psalm 89, Bo's paraphrase. So happy are those who know the sound of your voice, the secrets in your whispers, the cadence of your daily generosity. They walk confidently on dark paths because they know you are watching and guarding and guiding. Their lives are written and signed by you, so they are filled with deep, deep joy. Our prayer teams are available up here at the front over at the prayer wall, and also summer barbecues are happening this Wednesday, July 10th. If you're not in one yet, there's still room in some of our homes around the city. You can go out to the atrium, find out where those are meeting, and sign up. You can also still host a barbecue if you'd like to do that on Wednesday to give opportunity for people in our church to connect. And prior to leaving, would you guys just take a minute and connect? You got a little church here, a little church there, a little church over there, and over there. Find out who you went to church with, all right? You guys go ahead and greet for a bit. We'll see you next week.